Listen to me carefully, my friend. You are standing on the edge of something extraordinary. You are not reading this by accident. God Himself has led you here because He is about to do something that will shock even you. There is a financial miracle on its way to your life. The heavens are about to open, and what was once locked is about to be released. You may not see it with your physical eyes yet, but in the spiritual realm, the sound of abundance is already echoing. The season of lack is ending. The drought is over. God is about to release a divine flow that will transform your finances, your home, your purpose, and your future. God is not finished with you. He has seen your secret tears, your silent struggles, and the nights when you cried out asking, "When will it be my turn?" You've seen others rise, doors open for them, and blessings flow to their hands while you stood waiting faithfully. But I tell you, your waiting has not been wasted. Every delay was divine preparation. Every closed door was not rejection, it was protection. And now God is saying, get ready. I am about to release what you could not achieve by your strength. The hands of God are moving to shift your situation, and no power on earth can stop it. When God decides to release a financial miracle, He doesn't check your bank balance, He checks your faith balance. He looks not at what you have in your hands, but what you carry in your heart. Do you still believe, even when nothing seems to change? Do you still trust when the bills pile up, when opportunities disappear, when people turn away? Because God's release comes not to the proud or the doubtful, but to those who dare to believe when there is no evidence. Faith is the currency of the supernatural. And when you choose to believe beyond your circumstances, you trigger the power of divine provision. Let me tell you something deep. God never releases miracles randomly. Every financial miracle is connected to purpose. God will not pour into an empty intention. He releases abundance into the hands of those who are ready to steward it with wisdom, humility, and gratitude. If you have been faithful with the little you had, if you gave when it was hard, if you helped others when you were struggling yourself, if you stayed generous when you felt unseen, then you have already qualified for the overflow. Because when you remain faithful in famine, you become the vessel through which God pours His rain. You see, God tests before He trusts. He observes how you handle small opportunities, how you manage scarcity, how you treat others when you have little. And if He finds your heart steadfast and pure, He multiplies what's in your hand. You might have one seed, but in the hands of God, that seed becomes a field. You might have a jar of oil, but in the hands of God, that jar never runs dry. You might be standing in debt right now, but in the hands of God, those numbers can turn into testimonies overnight. Because when God releases a financial miracle, He doesn't add, He multiplies. He takes your ordinary and breathes extraordinary into it. I want you to understand this spiritual truth. God never intended for you to live in lack. Lack is not your permanent address. Scarcity is not your destiny. God is abundance itself. He is the source from which all wealth flows. When you align with Him, when your thoughts, your words, and your actions agree with His divine plan, you become a magnet for provision. You don't chase money, you attract divine supply. Because money is not the master, it's the servant. When God releases a financial miracle, He's not just giving you money, He's restoring your dominion over it. He's breaking the chains of debt, lifting the burden of worry, and reminding you that you were never meant to serve lack. You were meant to govern it. There are some of you right now who are surrounded by dryness. You've tried every way. You've worked harder, prayed longer, done your best, and yet the breakthrough seems delayed. But hear me clearly, it is not denied. Delay is not denial. God has been aligning your circumstances behind the scenes. He has been preparing the hearts of people to bless you, positioning opportunities you cannot yet see, and orchestrating divine connections that will open the floodgates. The miracle is not coming from where you expect. It's coming from where you least expect. God often hides your blessing in unexpected places so that when it arrives, you will know it was Him and not man. Sometimes God withholds the financial miracle until He has shifted your mindset. Because a limited mind cannot hold unlimited blessings. You cannot receive overflow while still thinking in scarcity. God had to remove your dependency on certain people, certain systems, certain jobs, so that you could finally understand your source is not them, your source is God. You may lose the job, but you can never lose your source. You may lose the opportunity, but you can never lose the one who gives it. When your confidence shifts from the world to God, that's when the release begins. Listen closely. God's financial miracles are not about luxury, they are about legacy. He blesses you not just to raise your standard of living, but to raise your standard of giving. You will become a vessel of divine flow. The blessing that is about to hit your life is not just for your bills, it's for generations. Our God is positioning you to be a conduit, not a container. You are about to overflow, not because you asked for wealth, but because you asked to be used. God releases abundance to those who can carry His compassion in the realm of provision. You are blessed to bless. There are moments when the divine hand of God moves suddenly. One day you are in need, the next you are in overflow. One moment the door is closed, the next it bursts open. That is how God works, quietly preparing, then suddenly revealing. You may feel like nothing is happening, but the roots of your miracle are growing underground. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean there's no growth. God is building something bigger than you imagine, and when He releases it, you won't have to force it, it will chase you. The blessing of God does not come with struggle. It comes with peace, but you must position yourself. A financial miracle is not a product of wishing, it's a product of alignment. You must think abundance, speak faith, and act obedience. Stop speaking words of lack. Stop saying, I can't afford this. Stop saying, nothing ever changes. Those words close the very door God is trying to open. Your mouth is the gate to your miracle. If you want to see wealth released, start declaring it. Speak as if it's already done. Thank God as if it's already in your hands. Because when your faith matches your confession, heaven responds. God moves through expectancy. There is power in believing beyond logic. Logic says it's impossible. Faith says it's already done. Logic looks at your account. Faith looks at your assignment. Logic calculates. Faith creates. If you want to receive what the world cannot give, you must believe what the world cannot understand. God is not limited by numbers, systems, or economies. He created them all, and He can rewrite them all for your sake. When you align your faith with His limitless nature, you open the door to supernatural provision. Some of you have been praying for years, God, help me get out of debt. But God is saying, I will not only deliver you from debt, I will position you as a lender. You will no longer borrow. You will bless. You will no longer struggle. You will sustain others. That is the kind of transformation God is preparing. You are not called to survival, you are called to overflow. The season of barely making it is ending. You are entering the season of divine surplus. Even now, God is whispering into your spirit, do not fear. I am your provider. I am your sustainer. Everything you lost, God can restore. Every door that closed, God can reopen. Every opportunity that vanished, God can multiply. You are about to experience divine compensation. What you thought was gone forever will return pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Because when God releases a financial miracle, He does not give you back what you lost. He gives you back more than you ever had. You must understand that abundance begins in the spirit before it appears in your life. You cannot wait to feel prosperous. You must think it, believe it, and act like it before you see it. The energy of faith creates the environment for manifestation. Every time you thank God for what hasn't arrived yet, you're pulling it closer. Every time you act in faith instead of fear, you're aligning yourself with divine timing. Every time you sow, even when it hurts, you're creating the soil for your miracle. I want to tell you something sacred. The reason you faced financial warfare is because your destiny is tied to divine provision. The enemy attacks your finances not because he wants your money, but because he fears your impact. He knows that once God releases what's yours, you will build, you will give, you will rise, and you will change lives. So he tries to distract you with anxiety, fear, and lack. But he cannot stop what God has ordained. The very area of your greatest struggle will become the area of your greatest testimony. Listen closely. This is not the time to give up. This is the time to prepare your hands to receive what God is about to pour out. The financial miracle you've been praying for is not a fantasy, not a dream, not a distant wish. It is real, and it is already on its way. You can feel it in your spirit. Something is shifting, something is stirring, something unseen is about to become visible. The divine current is moving, and those who are attuned to God's voice can sense it. There is an awakening of provision, an opening of the heavens, a supernatural realignment, where God begins to favor those who have remained faithful through the fire. You are one of them. You have been through the testing season, and now God is bringing you into the harvest season. There are times when God allows you to walk through the wilderness of financial dryness, not to destroy you, but to discipline your faith. In the wilderness, God separates you from dependency on man. He removes your trust in systems and teaches you that He alone is the source. The wilderness was never meant to be your destination. It was meant to be your classroom. You learn to depend not on sight, but on spirit, not on logic, but on divine promise. And now that you have passed the test, the time of release has come. When God brings you out, you will not come out empty. You will come out with wealth, with wisdom, with a new level of spiritual authority over the realm of provision. Let this truth be engraved in your heart. Everything you have lost, everything that slipped through your fingers, every opportunity that vanished, God saw it all, and none of it was in vain. You were being positioned for something greater. Sometimes God must empty your hands before He can fill them with what truly belongs to you. The loss was not punishment, it was preparation. The doors that closed were not meant to shame you. They were meant to redirect you. God removes temporary things to make space for permanent blessings. The financial miracle that is coming will not fade away like fleeting income. It will root itself in your destiny. It will be sustainable, generational, and untouchable by any force of darkness. When God releases abundance, He does it in a way that no man can claim the credit. He will make it clear that it was Him. You won't need to manipulate, beg, or strive. You will simply stand still and watch divine order unfold. People will ask you how it happened, and you will only be able to say, it was God. Because when the Creator decides to elevate you, no power in the universe can hold you down. Can hold you down? He can lift you from obscurity to influence, from insufficiency to overflow, from survival to significance in one divine moment. But before the release, God always gives an instruction. The instruction may not make sense, but obedience is the bridge between lack and abundance. When God speaks to your heart, whether to give, to move, to act, or to wait, it is never to take from you, but to position you. Obedience unlocks divine supply. Many miss their miracle because they hesitate when God commands action. The window of opportunity is often small, and the obedient heart is the one that catches the flow. When you align your will with God's will, you invite miracles into motion. You must prepare yourself, not just to receive, but to sustain what you receive. Many people receive blessings that quickly fade because their character was not strong enough to carry their abundance. God is not just preparing your finances, He's preparing your heart. The miracle is not only about money, it's about mindset. It's about transforming how you see yourself, how you see wealth, and how you see God's purpose in your provision. If your heart is anchored in God, the wealth that flows through you will never corrupt you. You will remain humble even in abundance, generous even in prosperity, and faithful even in overflow. Do not despise the small beginnings. The smallest sign of breakthrough is still a sign. The smallest provision is still proof that God is moving. Miracles rarely begin in grandeur, they begin in obedience. That small opportunity you have right now, that little job, that modest business, that small door that just opened, it may look insignificant, but in the hands of God, it can multiply beyond comprehension. God often hides His greatest blessings in humble beginnings. The jar of oil looked small, but it filled every vessel in the house. The cloud looked like a man's hand, but it carried a storm of rain. Do not look down on what is in your hand. It is the seed of your next season. And when God releases this financial miracle, you must remember abundance is a responsibility. It is not just about what you can buy. It's about what you can build. God blesses you so you can become an agent of His purpose on earth. The wealth that is coming into your life has a mission to lift others, to build something that glorifies God, to leave a legacy of faith and generosity. When you use what God gives you for divine purpose, He will trust you with even more. God expands those who expand His vision. Right now, some of you are on the edge of giving up. You've done all you can, and still, nothing seems to move. But let me tell you, when it looks like nothing is happening, that is when God is working the most. The darkest hour always comes before dawn. The night always feels longest before the morning light breaks through. You may feel like you've been overlooked, but in truth, you've been handpicked. God is setting the stage for your miracle. You may not see it, but the arrangements have already been made. The connections are being formed. The opportunities are being scheduled. The resources are being released. You will soon look back and realize that every delay was divine timing. Never underestimate the power of one act of faith. One decision to believe can shift the entire course of your destiny. God does not need a crowd. He needs conviction. If you can believe with your whole heart that He is your provider, you will see doors open where there were only walls. Faith is not waiting for evidence. Faith is creating evidence by trust. The moment you truly believe, the atmosphere around you begins to rearrange itself. Opportunities start to locate you. Favor begins to find your name. The invisible realm responds to the vibration of your belief. You must understand that God is not limited by the economy of your nation or the condition of your job. He can create streams in the desert, rivers in dry places, and opportunities in the most unlikely spaces. When others are losing, you can be gaining. When others are closing their businesses, yours can expand. God's economy is not controlled by man. He can command the wind to bring provision from directions you never imagined. You will find help from people you have never met. You will see favor where logic says it's impossible. Because when God decides to release, nothing can resist His decree. There is a moment when God shifts your identity from the one in need to the one who provides. That shift is about to happen for you. You are moving from borrower to lender, from struggler to sustainer, from the one seeking help to the one God uses to help others. This is not just a change of situation, it's a change of spiritual status. God is about to reveal the power of His provision through your life so that others may witness His glory. Your story will become a testimony that inspires faith in others. But to receive, you must detach from fear. Fear blocks the flow of provision. Fear tells you to hold tightly, but faith tells you to release. You cannot receive with clenched fists. God is calling you to trust Him completely. To step out even when you don't see the ground. To give even when it feels uncomfortable. To believe even when the numbers don't add up. Faith is not reckless. It is restful confidence in the reliability of God. And those who trust Him fully never remain empty. Many times, the financial miracle God releases begins not with addition, but with subtraction. He may remove certain people, opportunities, or sources of income, not to harm you, but to shift you from dependency on the wrong foundation. Sometimes He reduces your resources so that your faith may expand. Sometimes He allows the brook to dry up so that you may find the river He prepared for you. Do not mourn what God removes. Celebrate what He is making room for. The empty space in your life is not loss. It is preparation for overflow. Right now, heaven is watching your response. Will you complain or will you declare? Will you focus on what you lack or thank God for what is coming? The spiritual law of release operates through gratitude and expectation. If you believe that something great is coming, act like it, live like it, speak like it. Prepare your home, prepare your mind, prepare your life as if the miracle is already here. Because faith without preparation is empty talk. God blesses those who are ready to receive. When God is about to release a financial miracle, there is always a stirring in the spirit. You can feel it before you see it. You begin to sense that something invisible is aligning in your favor. The same way the wind moves the leaves before the rain comes, the Spirit begins to move before the blessing arrives. This stirring is not your imagination. It is confirmation. It is the sign that heaven has already signed the decree of your release. Your time of struggle is not your identity. It was only your process. Every moment of pressure, every season of scarcity, every battle you fought silently was preparing you for the expansion that is now upon you. God is about to turn your pain into plenty. There are divine laws that govern abundance, and when your life begins to align with those laws, the flow of God cannot be stopped. One of those laws is the law of faithfulness. If you have remained faithful when things were difficult, if you have continued to give even when your hands felt empty, if you have continued to believe even when every sign said it was over, then you have already unlocked the favor of heaven. God rewards faithfulness. What man overlooks, God multiplies. Every seed of obedience you have sown, every tear you shed while trusting Him, every moment you stayed steadfast when it was easier to give up, those moments are now maturing into harvest. The divine miracle of provision is not a myth, it is a principle. God never allows His faithful ones to be forgotten. You may have been in the shadows, you may have been overlooked, but the time of unveiling is near. The world will see what God has been doing in secret. He will raise you not because of luck, but because of divine justice. There is a moment when the balance of heaven shifts in your favor. That is the moment when every effort you made in faith becomes multiplied. The sleepless nights, the persistence, the refusal to give up, all of it becomes converted into divine reward. Understand this: financial miracles are not simply about money. They are about trust, timing, and transformation. When God begins to release abundance, it is not just to comfort your life, it is to confirm His covenant with you. He is proving that His promises are true, that His word does not fail, and that His hand can make a way even in a dry land. God takes pleasure in prospering those who walk in alignment with His purpose. He wants you to rise so that others may see that trust in Him is never wasted. Your life is about to become a living testimony of divine reliability. But before every release, there is a test. The test is not to break you. It is to measure your readiness. God cannot release greatness into a vessel that still doubts His power. He cannot pour abundance into a heart filled with fear. The miracle must match the level of your faith. If you are asking for large things, you must develop large trust. Small faith cannot handle great wealth because it will shrink under pressure. God must expand your spirit before He can expand your circumstances. So when you go through moments of stretching, do not complain. Those moments are the strengthening of your capacity. The pain you feel today is the proof that God is enlarging you for what He is about to release. Do not fear the unknown. Many people block their own miracle because they are afraid to let go of the familiar. They hold on to old jobs, old habits, old mindsets, and old fears. But God cannot pour new wine into old vessels. If you want divine abundance, you must let go of human limitation. The miracle is not coming from the place you expect. It is coming from a direction you never imagined. That is how God works. He surprises, He rearranges, He reverses. He uses what was meant for your downfall as the foundation for your rise. So when things fall apart, remember, they are not falling apart, they are falling into place. The spiritual realm operates on principles, and one of the greatest is expectation. You cannot receive what you do not expect. God moves through the energy of anticipation. If you wake up expecting nothing, you attract nothing. But if you wake up declaring, today, God will surprise me, you activate the spiritual law of release. Your mindset determines your miracle. Speak faith, not fear. Expect supply, not shortage. The way you think is the way you draw power. Faith-filled thoughts magnetize divine opportunities. Doubt-filled thoughts repel them. Guard your mind, for it is the gate through which your miracle enters. You must also learn to honor what you already have. Gratitude is the soil where divine increase grows. When you thank God for the small, He multiplies it into the large. When you complain, you close the flow. Many people block the miracle because they spend more time talking about what they lack than thanking God for what they have. The words you speak shape the reality you live in. If your words carry gratitude, your world will reflect abundance. If your words carry complaint, your world will echo scarcity. Start today by thanking God, even for what hasn't yet appeared. Speak life into your situation. Say to yourself, I am standing under open heavens. God is my provider. I will not lack. Those declarations shift the atmosphere around you. You must also understand the power of divine timing. God does not work according to human calendars. What seems delayed is never denied. Every miracle has a set time. If it comes too early, you might not be ready to handle it. God delays not to punish, but to prepare. He ensures that when the financial miracle arrives, you will have the strength to manage it, the wisdom to multiply it, and the maturity to maintain it. The waiting season refines your character and purifies your motive. When you finally step into your abundance, you will know how to protect it. Many people ask, why does God allow struggle before breakthrough? Because struggle strengthens your spiritual muscles. Without pressure, faith remains theory. But when you go through financial trials and still trust God, Your faith becomes unshakable. You stop panicking over numbers and you start believing in promises. That is when you reach a level of peace that no money can buy. The peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, your provider never fails. There is a divine principle hidden in this truth. God will not trust you with what controls you. If money controls your peace, He will withhold it until you learn to control it. Money is not evil. It is energy, a servant, a tool. But when you begin to worship it or depend on it more than God, it becomes a chain. God wants you to master it, not be mastered by it. When you prove that your heart is detached from greed, God can release unlimited provision through you. Because He knows you will not hoard it. You will channel it. You will let His blessings flow through you to others, creating rivers of kindness and generosity. Listen, wealth without wisdom becomes waste. God is about to bless you, but He wants to bless you with understanding. He wants you to build, not just spend. To multiply, not just maintain. To create, not just consume. Your miracle will come with responsibility. It will require you to think differently, plan differently, and act differently. Do not be afraid of this transformation. It is a sign that you are evolving from being a receiver to being a ruler in the realm of provision. You must also protect your energy. When God begins to release abundance, not everyone will celebrate you. Some will envy, others will misunderstand, and a few will even try to discourage you. But remember, favor attracts attention. Do not be distracted by noise. Stay anchored in gratitude. Keep your focus on God, not people. The same God who raised you will protect you. He will silence every false tongue and turn every attack into a stepping stone. The miracle that is coming to your life is too great to be threatened by human jealousy. This is the moment where you must walk with boldness. Speak to your own soul and say, I am ready for the release. Stop expecting small. Stop planning for barely enough. Expand your vision. The greater your expectation, the greater the manifestation. God meets you at the level of your belief. If you believe for survival, you will survive. But if you believe for overflow, you will overflow. The mind that believes in abundance attracts it like a magnet. The person who sees themselves as chosen for more naturally walks into more. You are not forgotten. God has not overlooked your faithfulness. You are next in line for divine elevation. The same hands that carried you through the struggle will now carry you into abundance. The same voice that sustained you in darkness will now call forth light upon your path. The same unseen power that protected you in lack will now prosper you in abundance. God is about to do something so powerful that you will look back and say, now I understand why I had to wait. The miracle is closer than you think. The shift is already happening in the invisible. The door is already unlocked. You just haven't reached it yet. The people who are meant to favor you are already being drawn to your name. The ideas that will change your financial destiny are already forming in your spirit. All you need to do is stay connected, stay believing, and stay in motion. God blesses movement, not stagnation. Even if all you can do is take one small step, take it. That small step will lead you into divine acceleration. Your story is about to change. The scarcity you endured will become a testimony of strength. The tears you cried will become seeds of joy. The very areas where you were once mocked will become the areas where you are most blessed. God is rewriting your financial history. The same lips that doubted you will one day declare, surely this was God. You are not at the end. You are at the threshold. You are not in failure. You are in transition. The time of divine release has arrived. Lift your head, lift your heart, and declare with faith, God is my provider. God is my source. God is releasing my miracle now. Stay expectant, stay ready, and stay thankful. For the next sound you hear will not be the echo of struggle. It will be the sound of divine abundance being released into your life. There comes a moment in your life when your soul can no longer bear the silence of heaven. You pray, but it feels as if your words bounce back to you. You ask for answers, but the air feels heavy with the confusion. You kneel before God, but you sense no response, no whisper, no peace. And you begin to wonder, why can I not hear God? But I tell you today, it is not that God is silent. It is that too much noise has filled your soul. The voice of God is not absent. It is drowned out by the clutter of habits that keep you spiritually deaf. God still speaks, but many have lost the sensitivity to hear Him. The voice of God is not a shout. It is not the roar of thunder or the cry of the wind. It is a still small voice, pure, steady, powerful, enough to change your destiny, but only if your heart is still enough to listen. So many pray, but few prepare their hearts to hear. And that is why today I must tell you, if you truly want to hear the voice of God clearly, there are habits you must quit. There are things in your life that silence the divine whisper, that harden your heart, that dim the light of spiritual clarity. You cannot keep walking with the world and expect to hear from heaven. You cannot fill your mind with noise and expect divine direction. You cannot entertain sin and expect the Spirit to speak. The first habit you must quit is the habit of constant complaint. Complaint is the language of those who have forgotten who is in control. Every time you murmur, you cloud your own soul. When you complain, you declare to heaven that you do not trust God's timing or His wisdom. You shut the gates of revelation because your words build walls between you and the divine. God does not speak clearly to a heart filled with bitterness, resentment, and negativity. When your heart is full of complaint, it becomes impossible to discern His whisper, because His voice always flows through gratitude. The grateful heart hears what the ungrateful ear cannot. When you choose gratitude, the voice of God grows louder because your spirit aligns with His goodness. Gratitude opens the heavens, complaint closes them. The second habit you must quit is the habit of rushing. Too many people pray in a hurry, live in a hurry, think in a hurry, and then wonder why they cannot hear God. You cannot hear divine instruction in a restless spirit. God's voice is never birthed in chaos. He speaks in silence, in stillness, in the quiet rhythm of surrender. When you rush, you drown out revelation. When you hurry through prayer, you treat God like an appointment instead of a relationship. The voice of God is not discovered by those who sprint. It is revealed to those who wait. Waiting is the womb of wisdom. If you cannot wait, you will never hear. The impatient heart is deaf to the eternal. But when you quiet yourself before Him, when you sit in holy stillness, something begins to change. Your mind becomes clear, your emotions settle, your spirit awakens, and in that holy stillness, His voice breaks through like the morning light after a long night. The third habit you must quit is the habit of sin you keep excusing. You cannot walk in rebellion and expect divine revelation. Many want God to speak, but they refuse to obey what He has already said. They pray for new instructions while ignoring the old ones. But God does not waste His voice on disobedience. Until you lay down what He told you to lay down, you will not hear what He wants to tell you next. Sin is not just an act, it is a barrier. It builds a wall between you and the divine whisper. When you hold on to sin, your conscience becomes dull. You stop recognizing the inner correction of the Spirit. And when that sensitivity is lost, even the loudest warning from heaven sounds like a silence. Purity sharpens perception. The cleaner your heart, the clearer His voice. You must quit the sin that numbs you. Confess it. Abandon it. And you will find that God has been speaking all along. You are just too spiritually deaf to hear. The fourth habit you must quit is the habit of fear. Fear is a voice too, and it often speaks louder than faith. Fear distorts perception. It twists what God says and makes you doubt what you already know. Every time you give in to fear, you empower confusion. God does not speak through anxiety. He speaks through faith. The fearful mind cannot discern His words because fear makes noise in the soul. It magnifies uncertainty, builds scenarios, and fills your imagination with shadows. Fear is a thief. It steals revelation. You cannot hear the calm whisper of heaven when you are listening to the storm of your own thoughts. You must quit feeding your fear with the negative thinking, with the overanalyzing, with worry. Replace those thoughts with trust. Tell yourself, God knows, God leads, God provides. When fear leaves, clarity comes. When trust rises, the fog lifts and the voice of God breaks through the confusion like the dawn after a long night. The fifth habit you must quit is the habit of comparison. So many lose their hearing in the noise of competition. You cannot compare yourself with others and still hear what God is saying to you. God does not repeat Himself. He speaks uniquely to every soul. When you are busy studying someone else's path, you lose sight of your own. Comparison makes you deaf to destiny. You start seeking validation instead of direction. You start following opinions instead of revelation. And before you know it, you are lost, not because God stopped speaking, but because you stopped listening. You must quit comparing your journey, your timing, your blessings, your trials. When you stop measuring your life by others, you make room for divine guidance. God speaks most clearly to the heart that is content in His will. The sixth habit you must quit is the habit of spiritual laziness. Many want to hear God, but few want to discipline their spirits to listen. You cannot live in distraction and expect revelation. You cannot spend hours feeding your mind with the world and then give God 5 minutes and expect to hear eternity speak. The voice of God requires attention, devotion, and pursuit. The lazy spirit always wants shortcuts to revelation. But hearing God is not accidental, it is intentional. You must cultivate it through prayer, through stillness, through surrender. The more you seek, the clearer it becomes. The more you draw near, the louder the whisper sound. The more you practice His presence, the more familiar His tone becomes. The secret of the spiritual giants was never that they were special. It was that they were consistent. They quieted their minds until only one voice remained, the voice of God. Now listen carefully. These 6 habits are not just behaviors, they are spiritual blockages. Every complaint hardens your heart. Every rush clouds your spirit. Every hidden sin silences your conscience. Every fear distorts your faith. Every comparison breaks your focus. Every laziness weakens your sensitivity. And together they create the perfect storm of spiritual deafness. You cannot hear God in that state. You may pray, you may read, you may worship, but it all feels dry because your soul is not still enough to listen. You must remove the noise. You must unclog the channel between you and the heaven. You must cleanse your heart until only the sound of God remains. When you quit these habits, something extraordinary happens. Your prayers begin to feel alive. Your spirit becomes alert. You begin to sense divine nudges in ordinary moments. You walk into situations and feel guided without effort. You wake up with a clarity you never had before. God begins to direct your step, not through thunderous commands, but through gentle impressions, divine coincidences, and quiet knowing. You start hearing what others miss because your spirit has become tuned to His frequency. You discover that His voice was never far, it was always within, waiting for you to be quiet enough to listen. Some of you today are asking for direction, but God is waiting for purification. You say, God, speak to me. But He says, remove the noise first. You want the revelation, but you are unwilling to let go of distraction. You want clarity, but your mind is full of opinions, doubts, and desires that are not aligned with His will. You must make room for the voice of God. He will not compete with your idols. He will not shout over your noise. He will not wrestle with your distractions. He waits for surrender. When you finally silence the world within you, the world within you begins to speak. Hearing God is not about volume, it is about proximity. The closer you walk with Him, the clearer His whisper becomes. Many want to hear God while living far from Him, but distance dulls the spirit. You cannot walk in disobedience, pride, or distraction and still expect divine communication. You must return to intimacy. You must live in the awareness that God is always near, always speaking, always guiding. His voice is not rare, your attention is. His presence is not distant, your focus is. The more you train your heart to recognize Him, the more naturally you begin to hear. You must also understand God's voice is not only heard through words, it is heard through peace. When you are walking in His will, there is a deep sense of stillness within you. That stillness is the language of heaven. Sometimes God will not speak through thunder, but through calm. Sometimes the greatest revelation will come not as a word, but as a knowing, a deep assurance that you are exactly where you should be. That peace is proof of His presence. But when you entertain the 6 habits we spoke of: complaint, rushing, sin, fear, comparison, and laziness, that peace vanishes. You become restless, anxious, and unsure. That is why hearing God clearly is impossible without inner stillness. There is a reason God speaks softly so that only those who truly desire Him will hear. His whisper is a test of hunger. He hides His voice in stillness so that only the desperate will find it. Those who are casual with God never hear Him deeply. Those who pursue Him passionately recognize His whisper even in the noise. You must become desperate again. You must say, God, I do not want to move without your voice. I do not want to decide without your counsel. I do not want to live without your direction. That desperation opens heaven. The more you hunger for Him, the clearer His voice becomes. Some of you are living in confusion today, not because God has left you, but because you have stopped listening. The habits you've tolerated have become your spiritual enemies. But the moment you quit them, the moment you surrender your complaint, your hurry, your hidden sin, your fear, your comparison, your laziness, something shifts. The static clears, the fog lifts, the whisper grows strong again. You begin to discern His will with accuracy. You start to walk in peace instead of confusion. You stop guessing and start knowing. You stop striving and start flowing. That is what it means to hear God clearly, not through thunder, but through peace. Not through emotion, but through conviction. Not through chaos, but through clarity. And when you begin to hear His voice, everything changes. You stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You stop fearing the future because you are guided by wisdom beyond your own. You stop worrying about what others think because you know what God has said. Your life becomes steady. Your spirit becomes fearless. Your purpose becomes clear. The voice of God brings direction, protection, and elevation. It transforms confusion into confidence, weakness into strength, wandering into destiny. It is the greatest treasure a human soul can possess, to walk every day knowing that the Creator Himself is guiding your steps. But remember this truth: the same God who speaks is the same God who tests. He will not speak to a heart that refuses correction. He will not reveal the next step until you obey the last instruction. Many want divine guidance without divine discipline, but obedience sharpens your ears. The more you obey, the more you hear. Every act of surrender amplifies His voice. Every act of disobedience mutes it. If you want to hear God clearly, live a life that honors Him consistently. Let your thoughts, your words, your actions be aligned with His will. Then, even in silence, you will sense Him. Even when He does not speak, you will know what He means. God is not far. His voice is not distant. His guidance is not rare. But you must quiet your heart. Cleanse your habits and open your spirit. Remove the noise. Remove the excuses. Remove the distractions. Then you will realize that the divine voice was never lost. It was just waiting for you to listen. There is a sacred moment in life when you must stop blaming heaven for silence and start examining your own spirit. So many cry, God, why can't I hear you? But never ask, what have I allowed inside me that is drowning you out? The truth is that the divine voice is not absent. It is hidden beneath the noise we build. God's voice is not buried under the chaos of the world. It is buried under the chaos within. The spiritual ear becomes deaf when the soul is filled with noise, distraction, and rebellion. To hear God clearly, you must unclutter your soul. You must sweep away the dust that has settled on your heart. You must create inner space where only His voice can dwell. The quieter your heart becomes, the louder His whisper will sound. When you quit the habit of complaint, something miraculous begins to unfold inside you. Gratitude becomes your language. And gratitude is the frequency of divine revelation. A thankful heart is an open gate to the supernatural. Every time you give thanks, you invite God's presence to dwell with you. You begin to notice divine patterns, divine timing, divine purpose in things that once frustrated you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start declaring, God must be doing something through this. And the moment your focus shifts from what is missing to what is meaningful, heaven begins to communicate again. The one who complains blocks divine flow, but the one who praises opens it wide. God's voice thrives in the soil of thanksgiving because where there is gratitude, there is faith. And where there is faith, there is divine conversation. Now, look deeper at the habit of rushing. You cannot expect to hear the voice of eternity if you are enslaved by the pace of the temporary. God moves with a purpose, not with a panic. The one who rushes through life misses the rhythm of heaven. Every step of divine destiny is deliberate. When you slow down and align with the divine rhythm, you begin to move with grace instead of stress. God does not speak to a restless heart, because restlessness is a form of mistrust. It says, I cannot wait for your timing. I must do it my way. But when you learn to wait, to be still, to dwell in patience, you prove that you believe God knows best. Waiting is not delay, it is development. In your waiting, God strengthens your discernment. He clears your vision. He matures your spirit so that when He finally speaks, you will not misinterpret what He says. Many lose divine guidance not because God failed to speak, but because they moved before He finished talking. When you are in a hurry, you settle for human ideas instead of a divine revelation. But when you wait upon God, the whisper becomes wisdom, the delay becomes direction, and the silence becomes the school of the Spirit. And then there is that secret sin you have tried to hide. The habit you excuse, the thought you entertain, the action you justify. Every time you make peace with what separates you from God, you quiet His voice in your life. Sin is not merely a list of wrongs. It is the fog that blurs spiritual vision. It distorts what you hear. It makes you question what is clear. The more you tolerate it, the more distant His presence feels. Not because God leaves you, but because your sensitivity dies. God speaks most clearly to the heart that has nothing to hide. When you walk in purity, your soul becomes a clear mirror reflecting divine light. But when you walk in compromise, your mirror becomes dusty and divine light becomes dim. God will not shout through your sin. He will whisper through your surrender. If you want to hear Him again, stop defending what offends Him. Let go of the habit that weakens your spirit, and you will discover that heaven's silence was only the echo of your disobedience. The moment you return to purity, the moment you humble yourself and let go of the chains you once cherished, you will hear again. The same voice that spoke light into darkness will speak direction into your confusion. And fear, oh, how it poisons the channel of divine communication. Fear is faith in reverse. It is believing in the power of danger more than in the protection of God. Fear is loud, chaotic, and demanding. It drowns out the still voice of trust. When you live in fear, you interpret everything through suspicion. You start seeing danger where God has planted destiny. Fear closes your spiritual ears because it teaches you to listen to the voice of what if instead of the voice of God's will. The fearful mind cannot rest in divine peace because it is constantly preparing for disaster. But God's voice never flows through panic, it flows through calm. You must quit feeding your fears with imagination. Stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Stop magnifying the enemy's threat and start magnifying the strength of God. The moment you choose faith over fear, your inner atmosphere shifts. The noise subsides, peace settles in, and the whisper becomes clear again. Fear blurs revelation, but faith sharpens it. Fear silences heaven, but faith unlocks it. When you trust that God is already ahead of you, you no longer need to panic, you just listen and follow. Now let us speak about the poison of comparison. This is one of the quietest yet deadliest habits that deafens a soul. When you compare, you step out of your divine assignment and enter someone else's noise. You lose the signal of what God is saying to you because you are too busy decoding what He is doing for someone else. The more you stare at others, the less you see of yourself. Comparison is the enemy of clarity. It replaces contentment with confusion. You begin to question your worth, your path, your progress. And when doubt enters, revelation exits. God has a personal voice for every person, a unique rhythm, a divine plan that fits no one else. But when you try to imitate or compete, you disconnect from the frequency of your own calling. God's voice is always individual. He speaks to you in ways no one else will understand. And the moment you quit measuring your journey against others, you begin to recognize that every delay, every detour, every hardship was designed for your unique training. Comparison keeps you chasing shadows. Contentment keeps you chasing God. Quit the habit of envy, and you will rediscover the sweetness of a personal revelation. But perhaps the most overlooked habit, the one that quietly suffocates spiritual growth, is laziness. Not physical laziness alone, but spiritual laziness. The kind that says, I will pray tomorrow. The kind that pushes God to the background while making room for everything else. The kind that desires divine answers without divine effort. You cannot expect to hear clearly from heaven if your life is tuned to earth's noise. Hearing God is not a gift for the careless. It is the reward of the consistent. Every time you choose distraction over devotion, your spiritual senses grow dull. Every time you delay prayer, you disconnect from revelation. God's voice requires pursuit. It demands discipline. It calls for focus. The spiritual ear is trained through repetition, daily quiet, daily seeking, daily surrender. The lazy spirit loses its sharpness. The devoted one becomes sensitive to even the slightest divine nudge. You cannot build intimacy without consistency. The voice of God is not discovered in the rush of life, but in the rhythm of devotion. When you make hearing Him a lifestyle, not an emergency, He begins to speak not only in your prayers, but in your thoughts, in your work, in your ordinary moments. Each of these habits, complaint, rushing, hidden, sin, fear, comparison, laziness, create static in the spirit. They are the reasons why so many feel lost even when God is near. You cannot fill your mind with noise and then complain about silence. God is always speaking, but His words are spiritual, and only the still can perceive them. Imagine trying to listen to the wind in the middle of a storm. That is how most people live. The storm is their habits. The wind is God's whisper. Until you silence the storm, you will never feel the wind. To hear God clearly is not about earning revelation. It is about removing interference. Purity of thought, gratitude of heart, patience of spirit, faith in uncertainty, contentment in destiny, and diligence in devotion. These are the inner conditions where divine clarity thrives. The more you align your heart with God, the less you struggle to hear. You stop chasing voices because His peace becomes your confirmation. You stop begging for signs because His presence becomes your assurance. The truly connected soul does not need loud miracles to know direction. One whisper from God is enough to move mountains. When you live in tune with His voice, you no longer fear what tomorrow brings. You walk with quiet confidence because you know you are guided by the unseen hand. That confidence is not arrogance, it is awareness. Awareness that God is near, that He speaks, that He leads, that He will not fail you. And this is the mystery. God's voice does not only guide, it transforms. Every time you hear Him, You become more like what He says. His words reshape your perspective. They awaken courage, cleanse motives, and strengthen will. The more you listen, the more you change. The more you obey, the clearer He becomes. Hearing God is not about receiving information. It is about receiving transformation. His voice does not just tell you what to do. It molds you into someone who naturally walks in divine wisdom. That is why you must quit every habit that dulls your sensitivity. Every complaint, every distraction, every compromise, every fear, every comparison, every delay, they are not small. They are the very reasons why many never rise to their divine potential. There comes a time when you must guard your inner world more than your outer success. The true battleground is within. It is not what you own, but what owns your attention. It is not what people say, but what you choose to believe. You must guard your peace like treasure. Protect your silence like gold, because it is in silence that you will hear the voice that can change everything. When you quit these destructive habits, you make your soul a sanctuary, a place where God can dwell and speak freely. The more you cleanse the inner temple, the more His voice echoes through it with power and clarity. Some people keep chasing prophets and teachers, hoping someone else will tell them what God is saying. But the truth is, you have the ability to hear Him yourself. You were created for communion. You were designed to walk with the divine direction. But you must clear the channel. When you stop living in complaint, when you stop rushing, when you stop justifying sin, when you stop feeding fear, when you stop comparing, when you stop neglecting your spiritual life, you will begin to experience what few ever do, divine clarity. You will no longer live by guesswork. You will live by revelation. And revelation is the greatest advantage in life. It makes you walk with confidence where others tremble. It makes you calm in storms where others panic. It makes you wise in moments where others are confused. That is what hearing God truly means, not just hearing words, but walking in wisdom. Every great destiny begins with a whisper from God. But to catch that whisper, you must be willing to quit what blocks it. The divine voice is like a river. It flows continuously. The only question is, have you cleared your banks for it to reach you? When your life becomes a vessel, not a barrier, you begin to experience a peace that cannot be shaken. God's direction will come not as confusion, but as conviction. You will not need to chase signs. You will live in certainty. The one who has learned to listen becomes unstoppable, because nothing in this world can confuse a heart that is led by God. And finally, you must quit the habit of seeking signs more than seeking God. Many people want proof before they believe, but God's voice is not something to be tested. It is something to be trusted. If you constantly demand external confirmation, you weaken your spiritual sensitivity. God desires that you know Him so intimately that you recognize His voice without needing signs. His voice is known through relationship, not through spectacle. When you seek Him for who He is, not just for what He can show you, He will speak so clearly that doubt will have no place in your soul. When your heart is clean, your mind is still, your spirit surrendered, the voice of God will no longer seem distant. It will echo in every step you take, in every breath you breathe. You will move not by sight, but by divine guidance. And when you reach that place, you will realize that hearing God is not a rare event. It is the natural state of a heart that has been purified of all that separates it from Him.